Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise to get straight to the knowledge that matters. Today we're taking a look at a really interesting scientific paper. It introduces a new player in AI, Intern-S1. This is a scientific multimodal foundation model. Our goal here is to understand how it tries to bridge a pretty big gap in AI for scientific research and, what makes it different.
Yes, for quite a while now, open source AI models, they've made amazing progress in some areas, like understanding everyday images or general problem solving. But they've really struggled in the very specialized, very demanding scientific fields. There's been this clear performance gap compared to closed source models in science, and that's limited how much they can actually help with cutting edge research.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. Why is science such a huge challenge for AI? What makes it so demanding?
Well, scientific research needs AI to do more than just process data. It needs to truly understand the underlying laws, the principles behind different kinds of scientific information. Think about everything from, say, complex molecular structures to really subtle time series signals. And it's not just understanding. These models have to perform serious, long-term reasoning, like forming a hypothesis and then testing it, or figuring out the best way to design an experiment. These aren't simple tasks at all.
And this is where Intern-S1 comes in. It's being positioned as a significant step towards, well, artificial general intelligence, but specifically aimed at science.
That's the idea. At its heart, Intern-S1 is described as a specialized generalist,
Mm.
which sounds a bit like a contradiction, but it means it combines broad understanding and reasoning with deep expertise in analyzing many different types of scientific data. It's built to go beyond general tasks and really perform well in specific scientific applications.
And the scale is quite something. It's a multimodal mixture of experts model in MoE. It uses 28 billion active parameters, but that's out of a massive 241 billion total parameters. It was pre-trained continually on 5 trillion tokens. And the really notable part, over half of that, 2.5 trillion tokens, came from scientific fields. That's a huge focus on scientific knowledge.
That large-scale scientific pre-training is crucial, definitely. After that, it goes through a pretty complex two-stage post-training process. This involves both offline and online reinforcement learning in a system they developed called InternBootCamp. And they created this novel method called mixture of rewards, or MORE. Think of it as getting feedback from many different experts simultaneously. This MORE approach helps it learn effectively from over 1,000 tasks at the same time, really boosting its learning across all sorts of scientific problems.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But how does it actually work? How does it see and understand all these different scientific data types? The paper mentions categorizing them.
Right. The architecture sorts scientific modalities into 3 types, and each type has its own way of being projected into the language model's understanding. For things you can visualize like weather maps or diagrams, it uses a vision transformer, a VIT, specifically the Intern VVT series. Intern S1 uses a large one, Intern VT6B, while a smaller version, Intern S1 Mini, uses an Intern VT300M. This balances power and efficiency. These can handle fixed inputs or dynamic resolutions for high-res content. Then they use some processing steps like pixel unshuffle in an MLP projector to align the visual information with the language model.
Now, here's something that sounds really innovative, the dynamic tokenizer. You mentioned traditional tokenizers struggle with science.
They do. Static tokenizers aren't great at encoding formats like SMILES, which is used for chemicals, because you just don't see it much in general text. Plus, a static tokenizer might treat the letter C the same way whether it's in DNA, a chemical formula, or just text. That could skew the representation.
So how does the dynamic one fix that?
Well, the dynamic tokenizer is smarter. It first figures out what kind of data is in the input string, maybe using special tags or just rules. Then it uses different splitting methods for each part and makes sure the embedding space, how the model represents things, can be kept separate for different data types. This flexibility gives a much better compression ratio, up to 70% better than models like OpenAI's GPT-OSS 120B on SMILES data. And that directly saves computing power.
Interesting. And the third category, you mentioned sequential numerical data, things like seismic waves or EEG.
Correct. For that kind of data, often long, continuous, without obvious semantic structure, Intern-S1 uses a dedicated time series encoder.
Which is tough for standard language models, right?
Very tough. So the time series encoder is built to capture those temporal patterns and dependencies. It compresses these signals into a form the main language model can work with better. It includes adaptive downsampling and transformer blocks. It's a unified way to handle lots of different scientific time series signals.
So the whole training process has these four stages, moving from text only to multimodal training and then post-training. The emphasis on high-quality scientific data seems really strong throughout.
Absolutely critical. Those 2.5 trillion scientific tokens didn't just appear. They built some sophisticated pipelines for data collection and cleaning. One is a page-level PDF document parsing pipeline. So much scientific knowledge is locked in PDFs with complex layouts, equations, figures. This pipeline uses a mix of methods, saving the more powerful VLM-based parsers for the really tricky pages. PDFs have unique scientific content you just don't find easily on the web. Their quality control was strict too. They ended up removing 20% to 50% of tokens from the PDF data because of garbled text or duplication.
Wow, that's a lot of filtering. And they did something similar for web data.
Yes, a domain-centric web data parsing pipeline. Instead of treating all web pages the same, they grouped them by website domain. They figured pages from the same site often have similar issues. So an LLM agent applied custom rules: discard, rewrite, or keep depending on the domain. It's a tailored approach.
Makes sense. And ensuring they actually got enough scientific data from the web.
That required another pipeline: scientific data recall and filtering. They used a three-level classification system, trained lightweight classifiers, using labels from a powerful LLM. This boosted the concentration of scientific data in key areas: math, physics, chemistry, life science, earth science, material science, from maybe 2% up to over 50%, a huge increase in purity.
And then the multimodal data pipeline built on all this.
It did. That pipeline focused on curating datasets that kept the fine-grained structure linking figures, equations, tables properly with the text around them. And it was used to generate specific training examples, like instruction following tasks or exam questions, aimed directly at improving scientific reasoning.
Okay, so after all that pre-training with carefully curated data, it moves into post-training, starting with offline reinforcement learning.
That's the first stage of post-training. They call it offline RL because the model generates responses, and the best ones are chosen based on things like accuracy, fluency, safety. Best of N sampling. This involved very careful curation of its instruction data to filtering it, labeling it by category and difficulty, enhancing it, sometimes even using synthetic data to get diversity across different scientific domains.
And then comes the online reinforcement learning stage. This is where the mixture of rewards framework, the more, gets used across, over 1,000 tasks?
That's right. The Mora framework is key here. It takes reward signals from many different sources: logical reasoning puzzles, specific academic problems, following instructions, understanding images and text together, even general conversation ability. It blends all these different feedback signals into one overall reward score. This lets the model learn specialized science skills while staying generally adaptable. And they handle the fact that some tasks are harder or learn faster than others. They use a hybrid offline-online data filtering strategy during this RL phase. They use large simulation environments like InternBootCamp for reasoning tasks, and tools like Compass Verifier for checking answers, and Polar 7b for alignment with human preferences.
So the million-dollar question, after all that, how does it actually perform? What do the benchmarks show?
The results are quite strong. On general reasoning tests, Intern-S1 came out as the top open-source multimodal model across 8 different tasks. For instance, it got the best score on MathVista, 81.5%, which is a significant jump over previous open-source models. It's even competitive with some top proprietary models on tests like AME 2025.
Pretty impressive for general tasks. But the real test was science, right?
Indeed, and that's where it really shines. On science benchmarks that are text-only, Intern-S1 got the best overall scores on SmolInstruct, ChemBench, and MatBench, often by quite a margin over other open-source models. Then for multimodal scientific tests, those involving images or other data types, it secured the top scores on SFE, MicroVQA, MS-Earth MCQ, and XLRS Bench. It was second only to OpenAI's O3 model on a physics benchmark. So these results show it really does narrow the gap with the closed-source giants and sets a new high bar for open-source scientific reasoning.
And there's also the lighter version, Intern-S1 Mini. How did that fare?
The mini version is also quite capable. It actually set new open-source records on several text-only general benchmarks like MML Pro and GBQA. But more importantly from this discussion, in scientific reasoning, it showed big improvements. It achieved the best open-source scores for its size on SmolInstruct, ChemBench, MatBench, and ProteinLNBench in text settings. And on multimodal science tasks, it leads among open-source models of its scale on physics, MicroVQA, MS-Earth MCQ, and XLRS Bench. So it confirms that even the smaller model is a very strong scientific reasoner, not just a generalist. Makes advanced scientific AI potentially more accessible.
Well, this look into Intern-S1 certainly reveals a major effort in AI development by really focusing on integrating vast amounts of scientific data, bringing in architectural innovations like that dynamic tokenizer, and using advanced training like mixture of rewards. Well, the team seems to have built a truly state-of-the-art open source model. It definitely pushes AI's abilities forward in scientific areas.
It sets a new benchmark, no doubt, for open source multimodal scientific reasoning. And it's a clear demonstration of how focusing intently on data quality, the right architecture, and sophisticated reinforcement learning can really push progress towards AGI, especially in these complex, high-value scientific fields.
So as you think about this, consider how models like Intern-S1, designed to understand the complex languages of science, might change the game. How might they reshape our ability to tackle the biggest scientific challenges?